Hey guys, TJ here at Top Deck Cards and Games, and today I'm going to be doing a Nekroz deck profile for the April format. Let's just get in the list. We'll start with our blue cards first. We have 3 Nekroz Unicorns, 3 Nekroz Valkyrias, 2 Bryanek, 2 Colossalus, a Trish, and a Gugner. I think these are really the best numbers of all these cards you can play. You need to play 3 Unicorns, obviously. We would play 3 Bryaneks if we could. Valk is something that people dropped to 2 last format, but I do believe 3 is the correct number, considering that A, we lost a search, and in general I actually think it's just one of the most important things you can be doing in this deck to keep your field clear in the mirror match and just apply pressure in general. 2 Colossalus is something that I actually really disliked last format, but again, losing a search, it's not a bad addition to the deck. It's also another warrior to keep your Shuret's Lab, which is important with the loss of a Bryanek. And then 1 Trish and 1 Gugner. Gugner and Trish both serve very important purposes, protecting your board and allowing you to push through damage in the case of Gugner to avoid Valkyrias, so you can kill the monster that they've out. If you guys have been playing for a long time, or playing Nekroz for a long time, some of this might seem pretty self-explanatory, but I figure I'll mention it just in case. And then Trish is kind of your deck's workhorse, like it's the way you really accrue advantage. You punish your opponent for leaving cards on their board ever. And again, the protection effect is pretty relevant. Then I'm playing 3 copies of Shuret to facilitate all our ritual summons. I think that Shuret's pretty good. I think that 3 is probably not necessary, but I'm testing playing 3 over playing any Dance Princess or Great Sorcerers or anything like that, because the fuel for the ritual summons is pretty key. Just having a Shuret and a ritual spell is, pretty close to being able to make some sort of play, so I'm trying out 3. Then we have 3 Senju and 3 Manju. Self-explanatory, they normal summon, they search. I actually am not sure if 6 is the right number of use. I think 5 might be. You're just so normal summon tight sometimes. Like your games don't necessarily go that long. Every time you have multiples of these in your hand, you're kind of playing at a functional disadvantage. So I think 5 might be correct, but I am playing 6 right now. And then 2 Effect Veilers. Veiler is just a sick card in the mirror match, which I think is the deck to play this format. So that's kind of the most important thing. Force your opponent to leave cards on the field sometimes. It can stop them from Djinn locking you if you don't have any outs to it. Notable thing missing from my list is the Djinn, obviously. I don't think that playing the Djinn lock is something that's necessary. I think that good opponents are pretty used to dealing with it at this point. And if you make the Djinn lock and get Eclipse Trish, you kind of just lose the game. So it just doesn't seem worth it to me. Moving on to my spells, I have 3 upstarts because, well, you have space in the deck now, especially losing the searchers, and just playing the minimal number of cards is always good. Something I'm playing now that I really was against last format is 3 Mystical Space Typhoon. The reason I was against this before was it was largely a dead card in the mirror, but with the increase in popularity of the build Hoban and the Leverets played at the last ARG event, playing Armageddon Knight and Forbidden Lance is the card that I'm most interested in talking about here, I guess, because the addition of Lance makes it so Typhoon is not a bad card in the mirror, because they're going to Djinn lock you with a Lance backup, so having the Typhoon makes you able to survive that play. So now that the card's just never dead, it seemed worth a slot to me. Then I have ritual spells. I have 2 Collide Mirrors or Kaleidoscopes, 2 Nekroz Mirror, and 2 Nekroz Cycle. I think that 7 rituals could be correct, playing an additional cycle, but right now I'm just keeping my deck as streamlined as possible. I'm not testing too much crazy stuff. I would probably prefer to just keep my deck as standard as possible, so I'm just playing 2 for now. Then we have our Djinn outs. We have 2 Book of Eclipse, Book of Moon, and Regeki. Not much to say here, really. You have to be able to not lose to Djinn. I think that a pretty big addition or change you can make is if you're sure you're going to be playing mostly mirrors, which again I do think it is the deck of the format, would be changing the Regeki for the 3rd Eclipse, because again, like I said earlier, the Eclipse Trish is just backbreaking if they Djinn lock you. And in general, Regeki is a better card, but in the mirror, like not being able to be outed by anything is just so crucial for Eclipse. But since I don't know exactly what I'll be playing against at any given time right now, I am playing the Regeki. And then the final card is our 1 Preparation of Rites. This card's obviously insane. If you draw it mid-game, it gets you, a ritual spell and a search, and early in the game it can just search a Brownic or whatever to facilitate your plays. So nothing insane going on here. Like, I chose not to play the Armageddon engine. I chose not to play, because I'm not playing Armageddon, chose not to play Rhoda. Those cards can all really help set your deck up. I thought about playing a reinforcement instead of the 3rd Shuret, which is something that I might change anyway eventually. It's not really something that I'm sold on either way yet. I do like Reinforcement a lot. I do like playing 3 Shirt a lot just to have the additional fuel, but Reinforcement does search for a Shirt or a Ritual spell through Colossus, plus whatever his name is. So, I mean, that's the main board. Another thing I guess I'm not including is Crush card, which is something I would really like to play in the deck because it's very good in the mirror, but the options for Crush targets are pretty crappy. Like, you could play Crow, which isn't actually good. You could play Tour Guide, which is okay but not great. It requires you to play Lilac and then put, or not Lilac, Farfa, sorry, and put Jin back in, which not great, not bad. I'd rather use those slots more productively for Upstart Goblins and Effect Veilers. But in general, there's pretty standard list. Go to the extra deck. We have our 12. I'm using Dragon Master Knight because he's cool. An 11. There's Star Eater, even though 11 doesn't really come up that often. Leo. And then 2 Herald of Arclight. Herald's pretty important for your Kaleidoscope plays. In general, they're all really there for that. Then we have a bunch of rank 4s. Excuse me. Rhapsody, Daigusto Emerald, Ragna Zero, Abyss Dweller, Exciton, Direwolf, Cowboy, Castell, Honor Arc, and Giant Hand. Giant Hand is far from necessary. I probably should just quit including it when I do deck profiles, actually, because I assume most people aren't just going to get a Giant Hand to play for fun. So you can replace this with literally any level 4 or rank 4 rather. And actually, the one thing that's not in here that could be is the level 6 Synchro. I have never actually wanted the level 6 in all the time I've been playing this deck, but that's definitely not to say that it doesn't happen. There's certainly situations where you would want to Kaleidoscope out of Brinac. It just doesn't come up very often, and because of that, I don't think too much about it. It's something worth considering though if you just need an extra card in your extra deck, or if it comes up for you a lot. Maybe if you're playing against a lot of Burning Abyss or something, you would want to summon Brinac more often. But that's pretty much it. It's a pretty straightforward deck. Another thing that I would like to fit in eventually is just more hand traps. I like being able to interact with my opponent as much as possible. Keep them from, just duking on me. So I would like to fit some Maxis in maybe a 3rd Veiler though. I'm not sure that I really want 3. 2's probably a good number. Depending on how the meta changes up, obviously the list will change, but just going into the format blind for right now, I think this is a really good starting point, and if you're interested in the deck, you probably had a pretty similar method to me as far as building your deck for the new format goes. I do think that it's definitely correct. Instead of playing 42 cards like people did for a lot of last format, I know by the end most people kind of got their decks on 40, but I do think you want to streamline and play Upstart now. It's just the most consistent way you can find your combo cards. This deck is a combo deck at the end of the day. Even though it's kind of grindy, it doesn't OTK that often. Oh yeah, another card that I'm not playing, and Upstart's a big reason for that, is there's no Decisive Armor in here. I think Decisive Armor is an okay card, but I think it loses almost all of its value when you're not OTKing your opponent, which happens very, very rarely, and your OTK is pretty close to just exactly 8,000 damage. And because I chose not to play Decisive Armor, that's a big reason why I'm not playing a Dance Princess or a Great Sorcerer, because those cards in conjunction are an out to the Genlock, but when you don't have as many searches, I don't really want to be forced to using them preemptively to set up an out to Jin that way. And in general, those are just 2 cloggy, bricky cards that I would rather not be playing. I could play, either defensive cards like Veiler or more streamlined cards like playing Upstart Goblin. So that's pretty much the thought for everything in the deck. It's, like I said, really standard. No sideboard like usual. I do think that's important to build a sideboard for your own meta, and I feel like it's just detrimental to copy sideboards. Other than that, some things that I've considered trying are an extra copy of Trish to have more Shirt targets, though you never actually need 2 Trishes, so it's kind of just something that I want to do because Trish is really cool. Probably not something worth playing at an actual event. But all in all, this is still the best deck, I think. Actually, a lot of the nerfs to the format were kind of buffs to Nekroz, even though we lost cards. The Vanity hit and the Skill Drain hit are actually a pretty big deal, though there's still Mistake and Spell Fragrance, a couple other floodgates that we have to worry about. But all in all, I think that this deck didn't lose enough to really reduce its power level that much, and if you're going to YCS Chicago, this is definitely a deck you should be familiar with and prepared to play against. So, thanks for watching, guys.